Okay, let's do some announcements. Learning announcements first. Okay, Year of Learning sponsored by Julia and Boris Kagan to commemorate Yitzhak Julia's father, Yitzhak Ben Motel. A month of learning sponsored in memory of Ilana Godfrey, Ilana Chana Bat, Harav Yosef Abraham. A month of learning sponsored by the Eisenstadt family in memory of Rachel Bat Shmuel and Ephraim Ben Tzvi. A week of learning sponsored by the Lerner family to commemorate the Yitzhak of Ari Lerner, Ari Ben Yamin Ben Shraga of Bible. And a week of learning sponsored by Tzaki and Jordana Cohen in memory of Rav Herman Dietz, Harav Tzvi Ben Menachem Mendel. Don't forget, tomorrow we have a bagels and lox breakfast. It'll be the last breakfast after Yom Tov. So if you made a reservation, we'll see you. If not, you can catch us on Zoom. And that's about it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
The Seder that we're all accustomed to has developed over centuries into the form that we have it now. The one that we do now is pretty much from the time of, I would say, the late Gaonim or the early Rishonim. And eventually it was, when the printing press came out, it was put into writing. But initially, the Torah tells us that you have to remember going out of Mitzrayim, you bring a Korban Pesach, and you discuss all the nisim and the flows that Hashem did for us. And in the time of the Beis HaMikdash, families would get together because it takes a number of people to eat an entire lamb. So they would get together. You'd be part of a minyan meaning a group of people that would get together.
25. Huh? 25 for the average.
25 people, okay. And that's why we say, Kol dich v'yesei v'yechol. Whoever hasn't been invited yet, come join us, because it takes a lot of people to eat the korban. Okay. And then as they were eating, they would discuss the Yetzias Mitzrayim, Midrashim, stories, etc. And it was a fairly simple Yontif meal. I mean, in the Beis HaMikdash, it was very crowded, of course, because everybody had to bring a Korban Pesach, and there were a lot of people crowding in, so it was very Leibniz. After the Churban Beis HaMikdash, the nature of the Seder changed, because you no longer had a Korban Pesach, so they began reciting Psukim, Midrashim, Gemaras, discussions with the rabbis about the Korban Pesach, about Yetzias Mitzrayim, and it developed by itself organically. Once the printing press was invented, then there was license to, I guess, coordinate or standardize what the Seder was like. By the time of the 13th century already, the Haggadah, as we know it, was pretty much standardized. There were minor variations here and there, but it was pretty much standardized. Kaddish, Yerkos, Karpas, Yah, all the different parts of it. Some people discussed certain midrashim, some people discussed other things. And I say it was fairly standardized. It ended with Nirtza at the end, Chasal Siddur Pesach, and everybody went to sleep. Then people started adding stuff, poems, songs, because it's a very important in passing over the traditions that the children should participate. So there's a lot of things in the Haggadah, the Manishtana, the hiding of the Afikomen, which has a number of issues, a halakha issue. I'm not going to discuss that now. And at the end of the Seder, they would add these songs to make sure kids would stay awake, or poems. And again, it developed in different ways in different places. Some people sing certain songs on the first Seder, some the second Seder. In Israel, there's only one Seder. Which poems do you add? Which songs do you include? What you don't include? Is a Sephardi Seder different than our Seder? If you don't sing Chad Gadya and Echad Miyodeya, are you Yotzei the Seder? Obviously, yes. The Seder is over with Nirtza, Chasal, Seder Pesach, and it's all over. If you can, stay up later and discuss the Mefarshim and the Midrashim. I tried doing it one year. It didn't last more than a couple hours. It's very hard to do that after. But the songs were clearly added on as a way of keeping the youngsters engaged. One of the most popular songs, of course, is the Chad Gadya. And by the way, in all of these songs and poems, whether they reflect contemporary songs or ditties or not, they have Perushim on them that related to Yetzias Mitzrayim. Chad Gadya, the Shepsel. What is the Shepsel? What is the sheep? The Korban Pesach, obviously. And my father bought it for 2 zuzim. All right, it was a cheap sheep. I don't know how much it cost. The song itself didn't appear probably until the, 13th century. The earliest mention of it, 12th, 13th century. The Rokeach, one of the early Rishonim in Germany. So it's reported that people saw this particular poem, the Chad Gadya. It was recited in the base medrash of the Rokeach. Okay. And the Rokeach's base medrash was destroyed in the 14th century, I believe. Let's see, does it have a date here for him? I had it here someplace. Hold on a second. Yeah, 1349. In 1349, the city was destroyed in one of the massacres against the Jews, and the Rokeach space measures. But a number of early Rishonim recall seeing this from the base medrash of the Rokeach, one of the early Rishonim. And it doesn't appear in printed Agados until the 15th century. Clearly, the song is reminiscent of a German folk song, like the equivalent of the Farmer and the Dell, that type of thing, where you keep on adding things, adding on and on and on. And then, of course, many Mefarshim, Chassam Sofer and others, would explain it and write Perushim as to what each of these things represent. The Chad Gadya obviously is a Korban Pesach. Shnei Zuzim might refer to the Shnei Luchos. There can be all kinds of possibilities. And there's a lot of literature on that. Yeah.
Chad Gadya is in Aramaic, no?
Yes.
So how in the 12th and 13th century do they come up with something?
Excellent question. Why is it Aramaic?
And
okay.
Also, another point. The beginning of that God is also Aramaic. So it's kind of like some meaning to that.
Good question. Okay. So first of all, you should be aware the Chassam Sofer, the 18th century, would translate the Chad Gadya into German so the children would understand it. But it didn't appear in printed Agados until the 15th century. But it probably, in the 12th century, when the Rokeach was living, there were still Talmidei Chachamim who were conversant in Aramaic, which is the language of the Gemara. So they basically took, in all probability, it was a German folk song and translated it into Aramaic, which is the Lashon Chachamim at that time. And it became very, very popular. It was customary to recite these piyutim at the end, again, to keep kids engaged. It's a long Seder. It's hard to stay awake late at night. And you've eaten all that matzah. It's a lot to do. And kids may not follow the Haggadah. So we get them you have Dam Svardeya, they're dipping, and then Manashtana. We keep them engaged in different ways. But these songs at the end, where everybody joins in, is a way of keeping the kids engaged until the very, very end. We're not sure who the first person was that wrote it. I don't usually recommend Wikipedia because the entries of Wikipedia are sometimes not always accurate, but there's a very good summary of the Perushim of Hadgadia on Wikipedia, what each thing represents. It's a fairly well done piece in terms of explaining the symbolism of Hadgadia. You can do the same thing for all the piyutim as well. But there are medrashim, and that's what I find fascinating. There are medrashim that are what you might call precursors to Hadgadia. When Avram first started speaking about monotheism, according to the Medrash, he comes to Nimrod, who's the king, and Nimrod asks him, why don't you worship fire, which is one of their gods? And Avram responded, well, water is superior to fire because water can extinguish fire. And then what about worshiping water? Well, clouds are superior because they absorb water. And the conversation with Nimrod and Abraham continued. And finally, Nimrod decided, I'll show you what's more important, and he threw him into the Kirsh on Aish. So that's one medrash. The Gemara, along similar lines, says a mountain is strong, but it can be cut by iron, which can be destroyed by fire, which can be extinguished by water, which can be absorbed by clouds. Again, similar theme like you have in Hadgadia. By this time, it's become part of our Masorah. The fact that every Ashkenazi Seder has Hadgadia in it gives it a certain, I don't know, I wouldn't call it Kedusha or not, but it's become standardized. There are practical questions in Hadgadia. What kind of a cat can eat a goat? If we're talking about a large cat, like a lynx or a tiger maybe, okay. But then it's unlikely that a dog should be able to defeat such a cat. And it's unusual for a cat to attack a larger animal, or for a dog to attack cat. These are very unusual things. And how is it possible that the goat is eaten at the end? I mean, according to the Chassam Sofer, it's not eaten by the cat, but the cat thinks that he ate the goat. I mean, the Perushim, and every stanza builds on the previous one, which again is very similar to a lot of German folk songs, or the equivalent that we have, the Farmer in the Dell, or things of that sort, where you keep on adding things along. If the cat kills the goat, then the dog is justified in killing the cat to avenge the death of the goat. But the stick is not justified, but the fire is. The water might not be justified, but the bull is. And the shochet might not be justified, but the malach hamovis is. And why does God slaughter the malach hamovis? A lot of interesting questions could be raised about the chronology there. Yeah.
I was realizing, that's at the very end of the Gada, assuming that there actually is a child still awake at that hour. That's a terrible song to sing before they go to sleep.
Yeah, give them nightmares.
I just thought of this, what?
Yeah. Well, okay, so because at that hour, people aren't focused on the deeper meaning of Hadgadia, just to remember what came after. It's a song. And the meaning, again, we are getting into the meaning of it, but most people, by the time they get to Hadgadia, if they're still awake, then they're not darshaning it out in too much detail. It's interesting, in some versions, there's also a mouse. How that fits in there, I'm not sure. But, and then the Perush about who was justified in attacking who, what did each one of these things symbolize? According to some Perushim, each of these animals represent a different country that attacked the Jews over history. Egyptians and Greeks and Macedonians and all different types of things. Why is Chad Gadya repeated in every sentence? Is there one goat or is there two? Is Chad Gadya an extension of Hallel at the end of the Seder? The Chassam Sofer, again, there are a lot of Perushim on the Chad Gadya. The Chad Gadya, the goat represents the Jewish people. The father, Zabin Abba, is Avram Avinu, who acquired, so to speak, the Jewish people. And it talks about his traveling two relocations, from Chutz La'aretz to Eretz Yisrael, and from Eretz Yisrael to Chutz La'aretz. The cat is Paro, the dog is the Jewish people. The stick represents the extra work that Paro gave the Jewish people, the slaves. The fire is the first 9 makos that put an end to the hard work. The water caused Paro to feel diminished, but also prevented him from freeing the Jews. The bull represents the Egyptian firstborn who were eventually killed. The shochet represents the Jews who slaughtered the Korban Pesach. Malach HaMoves is the Yetzer Hara, and the slaughtering of the Malach HaMoves could be the coming of the Mashiach or Matan Torah. The Vilna Gaon, different parish altogether. The goat represents the brachos that Yitzchak gave to Yaakov, which he passed on to Yosef. Very high-level interpretation. The brachos came about from the 2 goats that were presented to Yitzchak. The cat symbolizes jealousy and represents the brothers who were jealous of the brachos that Yosef got and caused the Jewish people to go down to Mitzrayim. The dog represents Paro. The stick is Moshe Rabbeinu's staff. The fire is the Yetzer Hara, or the burning of the Beis HaMikdash. The water, it could be the Jewish people that defeat the Yetzer Hara, or the Anshe Knesset Agdola who rebuilt the Beis HaMikdash. The bull is Rome. The shochet is Mashiach ben Yosef, and the Malach HaMoves is the ultimate Mashiach ben David, who kills Mashiach ben Yosef. The point is, every Haggadah has many, many perushim. The idea of all of this, whether you understand Chad Gadya, you don't understand Chad Gadya. Echad mi Yodeya, all of these piyutim are basically to keep you awake until the end, because it's a long Seder, and it's very problematic to finish the Seder by Chatzos if you're doing it right. One of the questions that I have never fully understood or appreciated is the Machlokes, Rabbi Akiva and Rabbi Tarfon. It's a Gemara in Zvachim, which talks about how long karbonos can be eaten. And karbonos, according to Rabbi Tarfon, have to be consumed by chatzos. If you offer a korban, you have to finish it by chatzos. Otherwise, it's the next day already. Rabbi Akiva says, no, you can eat karbonos all night long. Normally, I would say 9 cases out of 10, when you have machlokas, Rabbi Akiva and somebody else, who do you paskin like? Rabbi Akiva. For some reason, the Korban Pesach, we paskin like Rabbi Tarfon. And all the halachos, Shulchan Aruch, so you have to eat the Korban Pesach by chatzos, which is against Rabbi Akiva. Hasidim are not so makpid about that, because they go on and discuss the Seder much longer. To finish by chatzos, and some in the Ramah suggests that you finish Hallel as well by chatzos, which is somewhat problematic because you have to rush if you're explaining the Seder as you go along and all kinds of perushim, it's tough to get done by Chatzos, even if you don't eat a big meal. It's hard to get it all in. There's just so much to talk about, which is fortunate. You have 2 Sidurim, so you can, if you don't get in the first night, you get in the second night. But on top of that, you're trying to rush to finish by Chatzos, but then after Chatzos, you can continue discussing the Haggadah and the Zmiros or the Piyutim that come at the end. Trouble is, by the time most people get to Chad Gadya, they're finished. They're exhausted. Either that or they're just tired because of all the, somebody, who was it? I think it was Chevy's mother, Aleh Shalom, who said, she made 2 brilliant observations. Number one, Pesach should come once every 6 years. The second Perush was, if that's not going to happen, at least Pesach should come the day after the 15th of Nisan. So you have 1 day to recuperate for all the preparations that you make. Because by the time you get to the Seder, the women are exhausted. The men are also exhausted at the dinner prep. It's tough. All the work, and then and you got to stay up all night long. It's hard. So that the piyutim, these songs at the end of the Seder, at least for the kids, give them something to look forward to. And it's a way, perhaps, that is less intense in terms of perushim and interpretations to go over the Seder. It's a more of a joyous rendering of the Sipur Yetzias Mitzrayim if you understand the perushim. But the Haggadah, I think, in the early 60s, Professor Abraham Duker cataloged 5,000 or 6,000 different perushim on the Haggadah. 5,000 or 6,000. Today is probably more like 10,000 perushim on the Haggadah, and every year new ones come out, whether they're original or they say something new, but it's something that allows itself to be interpreted. L'man Tispar, we are obligated to recite all the nisim and the flows, and that could take a long time. So to liven it up for the children, who are an important part of the Mesorah, to keep them engaged, not only do we do things during the Seder, but we have things after the Seder for them to look forward to, because everybody likes to sing Chad Gadya and Echad Miyodeya, and these are all based, in all probability, on contemporary German folk songs. Like we have, who is it? Burl Ives, if you remember Burl Ives. I know a lady who swallowed a fly. That type, and they keep on going on. The same thing, and the Chad Gadya. These are all based on these type of things where you repeat. There's a hole in the ground, the green grass jewel. All these songs, every culture has them. To repeat, see how, if you can repeat all these different things without forgetting it. It's all part of Sipur Yetzias Mitzrayim if you can understand the deeper meaning of these songs. On the one hand, it's meant to keep the children engaged until the very, very end, which is why the Chassam Sofer translated the Chad Gadya from Aramaic into German. But at the same time, there are deeper interpretations. And if you want a quick survey, which you can repeat at your Seder, take a look to Wikipedia on Chad Gadya. He summarizes a lot of the Perushim on the Chad Gadya. Everybody has a different Perush on it. It's worth looking into because, the Haggadah itself, there's a plethora of Perushim on the Haggadah, and every year new ones come out. But this is all part of Sipur Yetzias Mitzrayim. The Sipur is the retelling. And it isn't just the reading of the Psukim, but it's the Medrashim, it's the Perushim that bring new life to something, because each person, and this is the most difficult part, is not coming up with new Perushim. The most difficult part of the Seder is seeing yourself as if you left Mitzrayim. That's hard to do. To see yourself as if you yourself were part of Yetzias Mitzrayim. So we engage with different Torah and Perushim to try to engage ourselves in such a way that we could try to imagine as if we ourselves left Mitzrayim. Very difficult. And that's part of the purpose of the Sipur Yetzias Mitzrayim. So I hope you all have a Chag Sameach Kasher, as they would say in Israel. and engage in as many Perushim as you can, and encourage the children to engage in Perushim. Every family, every child comes to the table with their own little Haggadah of things they may have learned in school. And it's important to not just for one person to read the Haggadah, but to spread it around. Everybody should participate, especially the children, because it's a long night, it's a long Haggadah, and it's difficult to get it all in, especially if you're explaining some of the key verses and key lines, which is probably the reason why we have 2 nights. Yeah.
What time is Chatzos?
Chatzos is about 5 to 1 a.m., somewhere around there, close to 1 o'clock in the morning.
Dad, you can also, if you want just another way of looking at Chagaja, you can also look at it as like the cycle of violence, right? That one small act of injustice can create this incredible, unstoppable chain reaction, which in the end only Hashem can stop, which I think is like another way you can look at the meaning of Chagaja.
Excellent. There's no end to all that. It's a very good observation. It works. I mean, add that to your Seder.
Put it on the list.
Anything else? Yes. I can't hear you. Yeah. Absolutely. At every level of Judaism, correct. Every level of Judaism can participate and benefit from these Perushim on the Haggadah. Okay, have a Zisum Pesach, everybody.
Thank you, Wally.
Rabbi Saina Barech.
Thank you.
Baruch Tov Yad Olam, B'shus Kol B'subin Kan, V'rek Shachal Mishalo. Baruch Shachal Mishalo, Tkachayinu. Uno Sein Lech Yolachal Prakil, Chasto Uf Tuvo Hagadol, Tomid Lachal. He who wails on face like Ovidiv like Ol Nechim Muzon Chol B'yasov Asher Bara, Baruch Ato Adonai Yazon Esakol. No, that was Baruch Ato Adonai al ha'oretz v'al ha'mazon. U'v'nei Yerushalayim Yirakodesh Meira v'yameinu Baruch Ato Adonai b'nei berachamav Yerushalayim. Amen. Reva Chatzolov Yatzlach Yeshua Nechem Umikol Tov Li'olam Yichasreinu. I'm going away for I'll be here for Chol. I'm going to Dina for the Siddur, and then the last days everybody will be together at tomorrow's.
Very nice.
Except for some of the grandchildren, they're going to their in-laws. Once you have married children, they got to share.
Yeah.
You too.